Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how I scan in my drawings and then enhance the drawing in Photoshop to give it a much better presentation. I'm going to show you how I clean it up and also bring out the actual graphite that is often lost in the scanning process. So what I have here today is a scanned in sketch, and this drawing was done several months ago. This is on moleskin paper. I used 4B and black Prismacolor. So when I'm doing this, it doesn't really matter what pencil you use, because a lot of times when you scan in an image and bring it up into Photoshop, you lose a lot of the graphite. You lose a lot of the subtle light pencil strokes that are much, much easier to get digitally. All right, so this is, oh, by the way, this is a Wendigo, if you're wondering what creature it is. Since Halloween is coming up, I should probably draw another, well-known creature. So if you have any ideas on what creature you would like me to draw for this coming Halloween, just throw it in the comments. But anyway, here's what happens. So you can see in the actual scanned image, there's the edge of my sketchbook. And then it's kind of blurry over here, so it didn't really look all that good on the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring in another version of this sketch. And I'm going to see, there we go, that's much better. As you can tell, it's upside down. So I'm going to be as raw as possible to show you what I actually have to go through in order to make these look better. I'm going to flip the canvas vertically like this. And then I'm going to switch it so it's the same direction that I drew it in. Now, whenever you're opening your sketchbook, you want to make sure that you do show some of the spine where you have to flip the page, because if you're drawing something large enough, all of the detail, it's pretty much going to hit the edge right here, and you want to make sure that when you scan it, you push down just a little bit with the scanner lid so that there's no blurriness and no light accidentally leaving the area that you need light in when you scan it. All right, here it is. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer like this. Okay, and I'm going to take the background layer and I'm going to duplicate it. So let's duplicate this layer. Let's just go background copy. Okay, and my original one is here with the locked image. I'm going to turn that off. And now that layer that I have, I'm going to put it underneath this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fill it with pure white. So I'm using a little arrow over here on the far left. Or if you want a hotkey, it's just X in Photoshop. Okay, and then I'm just going to hit my paint bucket tool and it's going to fill white in underneath it. So there it is, and then there's my original right here. All right, so I'm going to turn on my background copy, and then I'm going to turn on my white layer. The reason I'm turning on white is that if I have to use the multiply for whatever reason, it's not going to pick up whatever is underneath the drawing if there's more graphite or whatever. It's just pure white, so it can't. It kind of protects the drawing from you picking up stuff that you don't need. I'm going to go to the drawing right here, and I'm going to use levels, so Control L in Photoshop. All right, now if you're, I'm sorry, in Photoshop, but also if you're a Mac user, I think it's Apple L, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so you're going to see this graph right here. Now, the input levels on the far left, that little guitar pick, I call it the guitar picker, that is adding pure black to all lines created. So if I drag that over to the right, it's adding black to everything that I drew, and only anything that I drew. If I use the guitar pick on the far right, it is taking away the value. And you have to be careful with that, because while it is good to use the input level on the far right to take away some like dirt and stuff, I like to go in and just paint over that stuff manually. I don't need to use the color picker, or I'm sorry, I don't need to use the levels for that unless I really need to, because you can see what's happening here. When I turn this over to the left, it's taking away all my subtle strokes that I spent a long time sketching in the arms and legs. So you want to avoid that at all costs unless it's absolutely necessary. This graph right here, if you're wondering what that is, the highest peak is the most coloration of graphite. That's the most coloration of anything dark happening on your page. This, on the far left, you're going towards the mountain, I call it. So that's adding more value to whatever you put in. So you want to leave that there for now. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You want to leave this right about here where it's starting to get darker. You can see that it's bringing out details in the arms and the legs, and especially where I used atmospheric perspective in the back to show that there's like fog and mist and stuff. Okay, now if you're wondering what the output levels is, what that is down here, I do like using the output level if it's going to add subtle value to areas that are clear. For example, you'll see the pure white over here, but as you move the graph over, you're going to start to see gray, and it gets dark gray, darker gray, and almost charcoal, and then just pure black. So what that does is it adds like a layer of mist almost like dusk, like if this, whatever subject matter, if it's walking around in the evening time, like that. Okay, and then what you can do is you can use the color picker. I keep calling it color picker. You can use the guitar pick on the right to make it a little brighter, to take away some of the dirt and grime. And guess what? It kept some of the leg detail. So if you fidget with this, you can get it right. Now I can make the Wendigo a little darker, and I'm not really happy with what it's doing to some of the hairs and everything. So I'm going to turn that back almost all the way to the right. Okay. So now that I have this, here's the fun part. I have my sketch layer here. I have the background layer as white. I'm going to make a new layer right here. And then I'm going to color pick the background, whatever that is that the Moleskine produces. I love Moleskine because it gives you like that old school parchment paper look, almost like you're looking at some kind of book that's 500 years old, or if you're looking at a lost map from pirates or something. I love it. So I'm going to eyedrop that, and then if you come over here to the color picker to the left, that spot right there is the tone of the paper while messing with levels a little bit. Okay, so what you're going to do now is, instead of going to the right or to the left, because we're not desaturating it and we're not saturating it, we are brightening the tone that's already existing in the background. And I'm going to show you why in a second. If you take where that spot is and you're going to move it halfway to white, but you're going to go straight up, so about right there, you can see the difference over here between new and current. So current is the original tone of your background. This is the new one. Okay, and you're going to hit OK, but we're not done yet. I'm going to pick a brush first. So I'm just going to use something like, let's use the one that comes with Photoshop. So hard round, pressure, opacity, and flow. The flow is happening on the back of the hard round brush where you can see it fading out. I'm going to click on that. Okay, but we're not done. Under layer attributes, so this drop-down menu, you're going to go, you're not going to use multiply. You could use color dodge, but me personally, I like using overlay. So what overlay does is it brightens everything on the image, but it's keeping the details of the original graphite sketch. That is why it's good. Now, if you were to use color dodge, or even linear dodge, but color dodge, it brightens up even the pencil stroke. So it's like almost pure white. You have to barely push on it to see the graphite through that. So color dodge is amazing if you want to add some brightness to an already illustrated image. Like if there's some speck highlights on metal or even plastic or aluminum, any kind of hard surface. Okay, so I'm going to go back to overlay. All right, now this is where it's fun. I'm going to turn my overlay, the brush stroke, to probably 80% opacity. Okay, so if you're wondering what the difference is between the opacity up here in Photoshop and the opacity over here, up here is just the brush. Over here is everything. It's the whole layer. So no matter what you paint on there, it'll be like whatever opacity you leave it at. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in barely right there because sometimes the detail's lost. This image was scanned in at 300 dp. There we go. You see the details emerge back up. All right, now light source. I have to imagine, and just to keep it simple, I like lighting most of my subject matter, like creatures and characters, from a directly above light. All right, so I'm going to put some highlight on the nose here. Okay, and then I'm going to show it. I'm going to imagine that this head, as crazy as it is, are going to have peaks and valleys. All right, so this is where your lighting training will come in. You have to imagine that the parts where it's poking upwards the most, it's kind of like your forehead and your nose tip get the most sunburned in the summer because those parts are hitting the light more than your other parts of your face, and your cheeks because they pop outwards. Okay, so you have to imagine this. Now I'm going to put some light on the horn. Do it subtly, okay, not very much. And you can start to see that I'm not painting, guys. Well, technically I am, but I'm not choosing colors. I'm not manipulating anything. There's nothing happening other than me using the tone of the paper with a little bit of levels, and I'm adding a brighter, more vibrant light source to what I want to show off. Okay, so like up here on the horn, that's going to hit light. And also, this is something I've been stressing in my other videos, is that if you spend the majority of your time making sure that the drawing looks good, everything else falls into place. It takes care of everything for you. For example, your values have to be correct if you want the painting to look good on top of it. Colorization, like color in general, looks awful on a painting if the tone is not good underneath it, or the values. Okay, so I have this. I don't want to brighten everything. I just want to hit the areas where I think some of the light's going to hit the most. All right, and definitely I want to illuminate the eyes, because this thing is not human. Next thing, let's imagine where the light source is popping down throughout the rest of the creature. Okay, so the horns, the chin, basically the entire head, it's casting a shadow right there. So we're not going to really add any brightness in here. We're going to go to the sternocleidomastoid muscle right here on the side. Okay, and then you notice this part comes outwards when it hits the clavicle. So that's going to get more light, and I'm just going to fade it up into the neck. That's going to get more light, like that. And then it's going to be a little bit darker as it moves up into the neck. Now, I might have gone a little too far with that, so I'm just going to hit the eraser tool, but I'm going to make sure that the eraser is soft. And I'm just going to kind of take some of that away. All right, now, if we zoom out a little bit, look how much that pops. Isn't that great? So now, if we move back into where we originally were, no, I'm not saying great as if I'm boasting. I'm just saying I'm happy with the result. I'm going to put some of that brightness on the teeth, okay, because I want to show off those teeth and parts of the gum, like this. Now you could, after everything is said and done, and you're pretty happy with the direction of the light source and doing all this method, you could go back in and manually paint in some saliva or kind of edge off the teeth. But I'm going to argue against that for the most part, because you want to keep the raw form of your pencil stroke. A lot of times we as artists, we second guess what we originally put and we start to overcorrect. And we don't want to overcorrect thinking that something should be there. When in reality, if we did a good enough job with the graphite, it's going to show up anyway. So let's put some very subtle light hitting right behind those shoulder spikes, so that the contrast actually brings the spikes out. And we're going to have some of the light fade off down into the pec muscles, like all the striations right there. Since this whole part of the chest actually does pop out, I'm going to hit this with a very subtle bright spot on that. And then I'm just going to kind of let it fade off down there. See how it fades off into the texture that I drew with my pencil? All the hard work is done for me. This is like icing on the cake, guys. Like this. Okay, there we go. And now there's some other parts on the arm that are going to pop out too. Like for example, over here where the brachialis muscle is, that's going to be a little brighter than more parts of the bicep and tricep. So I'm going to put that up there. Some light's going to hit the side, and then a little bit of the top of the bicep right here, like the long head. And then that's it. I don't want to go any farther. I'm going to take this part on the hair. I might use an even softer brush. So I'm going to use the soft round pressure opacity, because hair is very fine. And I spent probably more time on the hair than anywhere else on this creature drawing it. So I'm just going to use that, and I'm just going to run it on the top of the forearm. Right there. So it fades off nicely on the side, that matted, disgusting hair. And I'm going to come all the way down on the hand, and then that's it. I'm not going to do anything else except the knuckles out here. So you notice the knuckles are closer to us than the rest of the hand. So I might bring out some of the veins here in the hand. Now, if you guys have noticed, I have not zoomed in, have I? The only time I did was to bring out some of the detail when I was doing the shadowing or the face up here. You want to avoid zooming in until you absolutely have to. There we go. There are going to be brighter spots. So this is when your pressure opacity for your pen is hopefully set correctly. Now, the other thing that I want to show you is how to add shadows to enhance just a little bit more of what you drew, but I don't want you to go too far, okay? Because again, the focus of this drawing is the face. So that's where most of the shadows are going to be. Now, we want to give the illusion that this creature is stepping out of some forested area and you're caught in its tracks, okay? There's fog, there's everything else. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go another layer. I'm going to go underneath the highlight, and I'm going to go multiply. Okay, and I'm going to turn, okay, the multiply is down to 81% for brushstroke. I'm then going to, this is really important, I'm going to eyedrop the original tone of the pencil. Okay, so this is what happens. This is what shows up. So it's almost like kind of charcoal, kind of pinkish. Isn't that cool? It just picks up that color. So hit OK. I'm going to hit brush. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure it's on soft. Yes, it is. It's on multiply. Now, let's test it. Okay, that looks good if I go over top of the body. All right, that's not bad. Now, I'm just going to go right under the jaw. Here again. Okay, and under here for the head. Maybe, I don't know if that's going to work, honestly. I'm going to take some of that away. Okay, that's a little better. And then maybe some of the armpits, but just a little bit. And then you don't want to go too far. Again, you want to use that, what you put in for your pencil strokes. You want that to enhance your drawing. Because I can turn the shadow off and everything's still pretty okay. This just enhances it a little bit, like that. All right. Because then check this out, guys. If you want to have a little fun, you can leave this. You can leave this and you're done. If you want to go a little farther, combine everything. So just go to layer, flatten image, hit OK. All right. Hit Control U, go to colorize, and check that out. Now, if everything is correct, you have a local color for whatever you want to start with. I would start probably with something like a desaturated, kind of like a gross brownish, almost like a burnt umber color. And then I would just paint on top of that. Look at how my preliminary work took care of everything. The values are there. All I got to do is colorize it. Okay? And if you want to colorize it, I'll show you how to do that. So hit another layer. All right, and I kind of showed this in my last video, but this is actually my full process, because with that demon head, it wasn't, I didn't show you how to manipulate the actual Moleskine paper. Now I did, and I gave myself highlights, and now I can go into overlay like this, and then I could just pick a color. So let's do like a sickly green, like somewhere down there. And let's just see what it looks like. I'm not going to colorize this all together, but just to kind of get some tones in there. Yeah, look at that. So now I'm pushing harder on parts where I want the color to come through, like this. And then if I get into some like reds and then desaturate the red, and I go into the eye sockets and then like the nose, it almost looks like wood is coming out of that sickly green color. And then you zoom out, and all of a sudden you have an illustration, and 95% of it was your pencil. So hopefully that was a good lesson for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below to let me know how your techniques are going, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.